Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I didn't plan on telling James how I really felt that night. It wasn't some dramatic confession I'd rehearsed in my head. It slipped out the way truth sometimes does, softened by alcohol and exhaustion. When your guard is down and you're too tired to pretend anymore. We'd been at a small gathering, nothing wild. A few friends, too much wine, the usual laughter that feels a little forced once you've been married long enough. James drove us home because I'd had more than I should have. I remember leaning my head against the window, watching the streetlights blur, thinking how quiet things had become between us lately. We'd been married 11 years. From the outside, we looked solid. Good jobs, a clean house, shared routines. People told us we were lucky. What they didn't see was how invisible I'd started to feel inside that life. James wasn't cruel. That almost made it harder. He was polite, responsible, consistent. But somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing me. Conversations turned into logistics. Touch became accidental. I told myself this was normal, that long marriages settle into something quieter. Still, the loneliness crept in slowly, like fog you don't notice until you're already cold. When we got home, James helped me inside, steady but distant, like he was doing his duty. I laughed about something stupid, trying to keep the mood light, but he barely smiled. He asked if I wanted water. I said yes, then followed him into the kitchen, watching his back as he moved with practiced efficiency. And suddenly, standing there in that familiar room, something in me cracked. I feel like I don't matter to you anymore, I said. I hadn't meant to say it like that. It came out blunt, heavy, impossible to take back. James froze. He didn't turn around right away. The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if he'd even heard me. My heart started pounding, that awful mix of regret and relief. Part of me wanted to laugh it off, blame the wine, but another part was tired of swallowing words just to keep the peace. He finally faced me, his expression unreadable. "You're drunk," he said calmly. That stung more than I expected, not because it was untrue, but because it dismissed everything behind the words. I shook my head. "I've been feeling this way for a long time," I replied. My voice trembled despite my effort to keep it steady. "I feel alone, even when you're right next to me." He sighed, rubbing his forehead like I just added another problem to a long list. "We can talk about this tomorrow," he said. "Tonight isn't the time." That was the moment I realized how small my feelings had become in our marriage. There was always a later, a better time, a more convenient moment. I felt heat rise behind my eyes. "There's never a time," I said quietly. "That's the problem. If this part of the story feels familiar to you, press like so it reaches others who may be feeling the same way." James looked at me then, really looked, and for a second I thought I saw concern. But it faded quickly, replaced by something colder. "What exactly do you want from me, Elizabeth?" he asked. Not unkindly, not angrily, just flat. I didn't have a perfect answer. I wanted effort, presence, proof that I still mattered. "I want to feel like your wife, not your roommate," I said. He nodded slowly, as if considering a business proposal. "I work hard. I provide." "I'm here, aren't I?" he replied. His words landed like a quiet accusation. I felt guilty for wanting more, for asking him to be something beyond reliable. I leaned against the counter, suddenly dizzy, unsure if it was the alcohol or the realization settling in. "Being here isn't the same as being with me," I said. He didn't respond right away. He just stared at me, eyes distant, like he was already somewhere else. I remember thinking this was the most honest we'd been in years, and yet it felt like standing on the edge of something irreversible. Do you think honesty strengthens a marriage or exposes cracks that were already there? Share your thoughts in the comments. James finally spoke, his voice low. "I don't know what you expect me to say." Neither did I, but I knew I couldn't unfeel what I just said, and I had no idea that his next response would change how I saw my marriage forever. James's silence stretched until it felt heavier than any argument. He looked past me, not at me, and I realized he wasn't searching for the right words. He was deciding whether this conversation mattered enough to engage with. Finally, he said, I think you're romanticizing something that doesn't exist anymore. His voice wasn't sharp. That almost made it worse. This is what marriage looks like after a decade. I laughed once, short and hollow. So this is it? I asked, we just stopped trying? He shrugged. We stopped expecting feelings to do the work. Something inside me went cold. I understood then that we weren't speaking the same language. To me, marriage was effort fueled by care. To James, it was structure fueled by obligation. Neither of us was wrong, but we were no longer aligned. I felt suddenly sober, painfully clear-headed. I'm not asking for fireworks, I said. I'm asking to feel chosen. He frowned slightly, like the concept annoyed him. I chose you when I married you, he replied. I shouldn't have to keep proving it. That sentence settled deep in my chest. It explained everything. The distance, the indifference, the way my feelings always felt like interruptions instead of priorities. I realized I'd been fighting for warmth in a place that values stability over connection, and stability without affection is just a well-organized loneliness. If you've ever felt unseen in a relationship, type the word invisible in the comments. James poured himself a glass of water, taking his time. You're upset because you've been drinking, he said. We'll talk tomorrow. No, I replied, surprising both of us. Tomorrow you'll pretend this didn't happen. He looked at me sharply then. What do you want, Elizabeth? He asked again, this time with a hint of impatience. I took a breath. I want to know if you even care that I'm hurting. That's when he said it. Not cruelly, not dramatically, just honestly. I don't know what to do with that, he said. Your feelings feel excessive. Excessive. The word echoed. Years of swallowing disappointment, of adjusting myself to fit his comfort, reduced to excess. I nodded slowly. Then I think we have a bigger problem than I realized. He stared at me, clearly frustrated. You're blowing this out of proportion. Maybe I was. Or maybe I'd finally stopped minimizing myself. I grabbed my phone and keys, my hands steady despite everything. I'm going to stay at my sister's tonight, I said. James looked startled. You're overreacting. I'm reacting appropriately, I replied. If this story resonates with you, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes clarity comes from seeing yourself in someone else's words. He didn't follow me, didn't stop me, just stood there, arms crossed, as if waiting for me to cool down and return. I walked out into the night, the air sharp and grounding. For the first time in years, I felt awake, not happy, not free, but awake, at my sister's place, lie in the guest room, the weight of everything pressed in. I cried quietly, not for what was said, but for what wasn't, for all the times I'd needed reassurance and accepted practicality instead. By morning, James texted, we should talk. No apology, no acknowledgement, just management. Over the next weeks, the pattern repeated. Calm discussions, logical explanations, no emotional movement. I suggested counseling. He said, we didn't need a stranger complicating things. I asked if he loved me. He said love wasn't the issue. That's when I understood. Love wasn't absent. It was irrelevant. I filed for separation 2 months later. James was shocked, not devastated, not heartbroken. Shocked, like someone who didn't see a storm forming despite the clouds. He asked how it came to this. I told him the truth. I told you how I felt, and you told me it was too much. He didn't argue. Do you think emotional neglect is as damaging as betrayal? Share your perspective below. Leaving wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, like our marriage had been at the end. But the silence outside felt different, lighter. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was alone, but I was honest. And that felt like a beginning, not a loss. If this story made you reflect, like the video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for stories that explore the truths we're often afraid to say out loud.